Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting story. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story.
Okay, it's late. I'm tired. It's been a long day. It's been a bad day. But I'm not going to get into that. We're going to move on and focus on other things. In that regard, we're going to do a shout out for whoever wins the boat race. I picked boats because today's video is about ratifying the Paris Treaty, which ended the Revolutionary War. So, history, yay. Ready? Here we go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, so I support you. The shout out is for our friends. Let's see who it is today. There's my start button. There it is. Can't see it. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I apparently paused it, started it, and didn't know it started. Let's see. We've got Black Beauty, Cruising is Fun. There's Jacqueline, Dave and Mercy, Nature, Love and Live, Henny and Debbie. Doesn't want to move today while I'm watching it, apparently. Reasons, there we go. Let's see, Jocelyn, Gallivanting, Yogi, Crazy Train, there's Josie, there's 5 Can, there's Lewis, there's Sorkin, there's Shadow and Gina. I should take Gina. I need to update this new. Hold on. Okay, let's see here. Cable, David and Mercy, David and Mercy, David and Stephen, Tina. There's Driving. There's Nature. There's Thorkin. American Wife. Northern Woman. Redhead. Tripping. My podcast. Crazy Train. Jocelyn. Let's see. Eddie. Oh, it's gonna be Redhead. Hold on. Okay, this is Redhead by nature, a comedian, life issues. So she's got some restrictions, ACDH thoughts. So this is kind of vlog. And then we've got, oops, not that one. Got some shorts, which are also kind of vloggy, silly stories and funny things. And then games, they'll kind of hang out. Birthday bingo. Lots of bingo. Hanging out with sister. Nope, lots of bingo. So yeah, that's fun. So check her out. Like, share, comment, and have a good day. Alright, people. Joe says it's only lightly silly, so try to pay attention because no laughs today. What? You said lightly silly.
Slightly silly. Mildly sprinkled with dates and numbers all over the place, but, you know.
Isn't everything?
That's the way history goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, 14th of January is known as what holiday?
None.
Known as a holiday.
No.
Yes.
No.
It's a very important day.
No, it's not.
It was first celebrated in 1784.
I don't know what it is.
It is Ratification Day.
What does that mean in English?
If you're highly confused, it's the same thing as I thought, because I had no idea that they gave this a day, a date for a purpose, but apparently to them it was very important. Ratification Day in the United States is the anniversary of the Congressional Proclamation of the ratification for the Treaty of Paris.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing it and I was like,
Yeah.
cool beans.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, so I didn't put it on the list.
Well, this is why we're going to throw it to you and see if you guys think this is important, because apparently there was a little confusion about the whole thing, but isn't there always?
I'm already confused.
Yeah. Basically, what happened in January 14th, 1784, at the Maryland State House in Annapolis, Maryland, by the Confederation Congress,
Phew.
which would mark the official end of the American Revolutionary War. Now, as the note states, the journals of the Continental Congress reported that the Confederation of Congress proclaimed on April 11th, 1783, the cessation of arms against Great Britain. Congress approved the preliminary Articles of Peace on April 15th, 4 days later. The Treaty of Paris was signed on September the 3rd, 1783, and then ratified January 14, 1784. A short excerpt of the proclamation states, by the United States and Congress assembled a proclamation whereas definitive articles of peace and friendship between the United States of America and His Britannic Majesty were concluded and signed at Paris on the 3rd day of September, 1783. We have thought proper by these presents to notify the princes and all the good citizens these United States, given under the seal of the United States, witness His Excellency Thomas Mifflin, our President, at Annapolis, this 14th day of January, in the year of our Lord 1784. I did not know Thomas Mifflin was the president. Anyway.
I was about to ask, wait, what? I thought Washington was the first president.
Yeah. Now here's where it gets funny, though. Okay. Due to the severe winter that year, delegates from only 7 of the 13 states were present in Congress. Yeah. Welcome to the lovely wintry weather. According to the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, 9 states were required to enter a treaty.
Well, in that case, we're doomed.
Oh, yeah. Now, one faction believed that the 7 states could ratify the treaty, arguing that they were merely ratifying and not entering it. Furthermore, it was unlikely.
We're just going to correct it, but we're not going to sign it.
Yeah, you know, we're going to make it look pretty, but it's not official yet. Furthermore, it was unlikely that the required delegates could reach Annapolis before the ratification deadline. Now, Thomas Jefferson, we all know who he is.
Do we?
Their faction believes that a full 9 states were required to ratify the treaty, and that any fewer would be trickery that the British would eventually find out, giving an excuse to nullify the treaty. Jefferson stated that it would be a dishonorable prostitution of the Great Seal of the United States. That's a weird thing to say.
Yes.
Now, Jefferson was elected to head a committee of members of both factions and arrived at a compromise. Assuming that only 7 states were present, Congress would pass a resolution stating that the 7 states present were unanimously in favor of ratification of the treaty, but were in disagreement of the competency of Congress to ratify with only 7 states. Although only 7 states were present, their unanimous agreement in favor of ratification would be used to secure peace. The note would not set a precedent for future decisions. The document would be forwarded to the U.S. ministers in Europe, who would be told to wait until a treaty ratified by the United States could arrive and request a delay of 3 months. Hey guys, got a snowstorm over here. However, if Britain insisted, the minister should use the 7th state ratification, pleading that a full Congress was not in session. Ultimately, delegates from Connecticut and South Carolina arrived at the last moment, and 9 states ratified the treaty. 3 copies were sent by separate couriers to ensure delivery. Now, to kind of put the hat on top of the statue and everything, Treaty of Paris. For those of you who actually were still awake in history class, the way, Sue's already asleep. The way the Treaty of Paris worked was that it was signed by representatives of good old King George III and representatives of the United States on September 3rd, 1783, officially ending the War of American Independence and recognizing the 13 colonies, which had been part of the colonial British America, to be free, sovereign, and independent United States. This is all after we kicked our butts at Yorktown, For those of you who want to go ahead and queue up Hamilton and shot her around the world. Now, the treaty set boundaries between the British North America, later called Canada, Canadians,
Canadians!
And the United States on lines that British labeled as exceedingly generous, although exact boundary definitions in the far northwest and the south continue to be subject to some controversy, of course. Details would include fishing rights, restoration of property, and prisoners of war. We have a lot of those guys in camps, you know that? Now, this treaty and separate peace treaties between Great Britain and the nations that supported the American cause, including France, Spain, and the Dutch Republic, are known collectively as the Peace of Paris. Only Article 1 of the treaty, which acknowledges the United States' existence as free, sovereign, and independent states, remains in force. As they go, peace negotiations began in Paris in 1782, following the victory of George Washington and the Continental Army in the American Revolutionary War. The negotiations continued through the summer of 1782. Representing the United States were Benjamin Franklin, John Jay, Henry Lawrence, and John Adams. Representing the Kingdom of Great Britain and King George III were David Hartley and Richard Oswald. Now, the treaty was drafted on November the 30th, 1782, and signed at the Hotel New York at present-day 56 Rue Jacob in Paris on September the 3rd, 1783, by Adams, Franklin, Jay, and Hartley. On September 1782, French Foreign Minister Vergennes proposed a solution to deadlocked negotiations between the United States and British, which was rejected by the United States. France was exhausted by the war, and all parties sought peace except for Spain, which insisted on continuing the Revolutionary War until it could capture Gibraltar from the British. Now, that would have been a heck of a trick. Vergennes developed treaty terms under which Spain would forego holding Gibraltar and the United States would be granted independence, but it would be confined to the area east of the Appalachian Mountains. Britain would keep the area north of the Ohio River, which was part of the province of Quebec. In the area south, that would be an independent Indian barrier state under Spanish control. So again, even then, back then, they were like, we don't care about the Native Americans, we'll just let you guys have this land called Spain. I'm sure that's going to go over really well. Now, the American delegation perceived that they could obtain a better treaty in negotiating directly with the British in London. John Jay promptly told the British that he was willing to negotiate directly with them and to bypass France and Spain, and British Prime Minister Lord Shelburne agreed. In charge of the British negotiations, some of which took place in his study at Lansdowne House, now a bar in Lansdowne Club, Shelburne now saw a chance to split the United States from France and to establish the new nation as a valuable economic partner. The terms were that the United States would gain all of the area east of the Mississippi, north of present-day Florida, and south of present-day Canada. Hey, I'll take that bargain. the northern boundary would almost be the same as it is today. The United States would gain fishing rights off of Nova Scotia's coast and agreed to allow British merchants and loyalists to try to recover their property. Good luck.
How dare you?
The treaty was highly favorable to the U.S. and deliberately so from the British point of view. Shelburne saw highly profitable two-way trade between Britain and the rapidly growing United States, which came to pass. Great Britain also signed separate agreements with France and Spain and provisionally with the Netherlands. In the treaty with Spain, the territories of East and West Florida were ceded to Spain without a clear northern boundary, which resulted in a territorial dispute which would be resolved with the Treaty of Madrid in 1795. Spain also received the island of Minorca, but the Bahamas, Grenada, and Montserrat, which had been captured by the French and Spaniards, were returned to Britain. The treaty with France was mostly about exchanges of captured territory. France's only net gains were the island of Tobago and Senegal in Africa, but it also reinforced earlier treaties guaranteeing fishing rights off Newfoundland. Dutch possessions in the East Indies, captured in 1781, were returned by Britain to the Netherlands in exchange for trading privileges in the Dutch East Indies by treaty, which was not finalized until 1784. Now, the Congress of the Confederation, operating as the legislative body of the newly established United States, were able to ratify this treaty in Paris on January 14, 1784, in Annapolis, Maryland, in the old Senate chamber of the Maryland State House we were just talking about earlier. Copies were sent back to Europe for ratification by the other parties involved, first reaching France in March of 1784. British ratification would occur on April 9, 1784, and the ratified versions were exchanged in Paris in May 12, 1784. So you've got basically 5 different dates for the same event. Let's play jigsaw puzzle with our paperwork here. Now, I forget what they go with. The treaty and the separate peace treaties between Great Britain and the 3 colonial powers that supported the American cause, France, Spain, and the Dutch Republic, are also known collectively as the Peace of Paris. Only Article 1 of the treaty, which acknowledges the United States' existence as free and sovereign independent states, remains in force. The United States borders changed in later years, which was a major reason specific articles of the treaty were superseded. Under the preamble, declares the treaty to be in the name of the most holy and undivided Trinity, followed by a reference to the divine providence, states the bona fides of the signatories, and declares the intention of both parties to forget all past misunderstandings and differences and secure both perpetual peace and harmony. Aren't we all shiny, happy, shiny people?
I like happy, shiny people.
Now, Britain would acknowledge the United States comprising of what had been the provinces of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, the colony of Rhode Island, Providence Plantations, Connecticut Colony, Province of New York, Province of New Jersey, Province of Pennsylvania, Delaware Colony, Province of Maryland, Colony of Virginia, Province of North Carolina, Province of South Carolina, and the Province of Georgia to be free, sovereign, and independent states, and that the British Crown and all heirs and successors relinquish claims to the government, property, and territorial rights of the same, and every part thereof, to establishing the boundaries of the United States, including but not limited to those between the United States and British North America, from the Mississippi River to the southern colonies. Britain surrenders their previously owned land, granting fishing rights to the United States fishermen in the Grand Banks, off the coast of Newfoundland and the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Creditors on either side shall meet with no lawful impediment to the recovery of the full value in sterling money of all bona fide debts herefore contracted. The Congress of the Confederation will earnestly recommend to state legislatures to recognize the rightful owners of all confiscated lands and provide for the restitution of all the states' rights and properties which have been confiscated belonging to British subjects, aka what we later termed them as loyalists. Now, the United States will prevent future confiscation of the property of loyalists. Prisoners of war on both sides are to be released. All British property now in the United States is to remain with them and to be forfeited. Both Great Britain and the United States are to be given perpetual access to the Mississippi River. Territories captured on either side subsequent to the treaty will be returned without compensation, and ratification of the treaty is to occur within 6 months of its signing. Done at Paris, the 3rd day of September, in the year of our Lord, 1783. One of the interesting parts that I always thought about this whole kerfuffle, another one of my favorite words, kerfuffle, is that when you think about the fact that the United States had people that were still loyal to Britain. You might have neighbors across the street, you have my neighbors next door, you might have somebody inside your own family line that were loyal to the British. They didn't want independence. Well, what wound up happening with some of these folks is that they would literally pack up their stuff and they would either head back to Great Britain or they would turn and head up to Canada, which I wanted somebody forget to tell them that it gets really cold up there. The dude for Hudson Bay found out the hard way too. But the consequences for all this fun stuff, historians have often commented that the treaty was very generous to the United States in terms of greatly enlarged boundaries. Historians such as Alvord, Harlow, and Richardson have emphasized that British generosity was based on the statesmanlike vision of close economic ties between the British and the United States. The concession of vast trans-Appalachian region was designed to facilitate the growth of the American population and to create lucrative markets for British merchants without any military or administrative cost to Britain. The point was that the United States would become a major trading partner. As French Foreign Minister Vergennes later put it, the English buy peace rather than make it. Vermont was included in the boundaries because the state of New York insisted that Vermont was a partner of New York, although Vermont was then under a government that considered Vermont to not be part of the United States. Vermont's always kind of been that way, though, even today. Privileges that the Americans had automatically received from Britain when they were colonial status included protection from the Barbary corsairs in the Mediterranean Sea were lost. Individual states ignored financial, or I should say federal recommendations under Article 5 to restore confiscated Loyalist property, and Article 6, which provided for confiscating Loyalist property for unpaid debts. The Commonwealth of Virginia defied Article 4 and maintained laws about payment of debts to British creditors. Several Loyalists attempted to file for a return of their property in the U.S. legal system after the Revolutionary War, but most were unsuccessful. The actual geography of North America turned out not to match the details used in the treaty. The treaty specified a southern boundary for the United States, but the separate Anglo-Spanish agreement did not specify a northern boundary for Florida. The Spanish government assumed that the boundary was the same as in the 1763 agreement, by which it had first given its territory in Florida to Great Britain. While the West Florida controversy continued, Spain used its new control of Florida to block American access to the Mississippi in defiance of Article 8. To the north, the treaty stated that the boundary of the United States extended from the most northwestern point on the Lake of the Woods in present-day Minnesota, Manitoba, and Ontario, directly westward until it reached the Mississippi River. However, the Mississippi River does not extend that far northward, and the line going west from the Lake of the Woods never intersects the river. Additionally, the Treaty of Paris did not explain how the new border would function in terms of controlling the movement of people and trade between British North America and the United States. American diplomats expected of negotiating a commercial treaty with Britain to resolve some of these unfinished business of the Treaty of Paris failed to materialize in 1784. Despite government agreements for British evacuation of northern forts, Britain continued to occupy the forts. Meanwhile, the British were dissatisfied with the American harassment of loyalists. The United States would thus wait until 1794 to negotiate the first commercial agreement with the British Empire, the Jay Treaty. A major point of tension in the Anglo-American relations after the U.S. independence was the British refusal to relinquish control over 8 forts in what is technically American territory with all convenient speed. 6 of the forts were located in the Great Lakes region, and 2 were located at the north end of Lake Champlain. The British also built another fort in present-day Ohio during the Northwest Indian War in 1794.
How dare they?
How dare they? They justified the continued occupation of the forts by citing the United States' failure to abide by the terms of the Treaty of Paris, specifically the American promise to compensate British subjects, including loyalists, for their wartime losses.
So we learned to lie from the English.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. And all the forts were relinquished peacefully through diplomatic means as a result of the Jay Treaty. Present-day forts in Lake Champlain, the Fort Alfeur, Fort Dutchman's Point, Fort Lenoir on the Detroit River, including Fort Detroit itself, Fort Mackinac in the Straits of Mackinac, Fort Miami in Ohio, Fort Niagara on the Niagara River in New York, Fort Ontario on Lake Ontario in Oswego, New York, and Fort Ostagachi on the St. Lawrence River in Owensburg. But this was our happy little effects. And from this, happy experience, the Revolutionary War was finally brought to a peaceful end without shooting, but a lot of penmanship, and X number of copies of it being sent to 4 different countries, and it did lead to the expansion of the United States. It gave us some extra territory out toward the Appalachians. We gained some extra forts. There's still some argument down in Florida with the Spanish.
Because we don't want to get along with Spanish.
Exactly. But that was the happiness that took place because of Ratification Day in 1784. And if I remember, I think this year is the year that we actually will celebrate the 250th anniversary.
Yes, they're making a very big deal out of it. We're going to be 250 this year. Woo-hoo. And Rapid City thinks they're going to be special because, we're near Mount Rushmore.
I think you're doing like a 3-day festival, parade, all sorts of.
I do think it'll be fun to see what they do. And, we might cover a few, depending on time.
See,
what's available.
I guess they're going to shut down some of the blocks downtown, which I think will be interesting, too. And then there's that crazy thing called Liberty Land, which I'm still not sold on, but, whatever. I'm
going to have to see it before I believe it.
Yeah. So. But this has been the Bearded Historian, folks. It's been fun. We'll see you next week.
Has it?
Yes, it has.
Are you sure?
I tried to.
All right, we got almost 24 minutes.